Today I'm going to run down all the important market stats and trends you have to know with regards to Toronto real estate according to the latest TREB resale housing report for the month of September. And you can catch the breakdown I did previously of the month of August. Let's get to the video. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Back with another breakdown of the latest market stats and trends. In today's video, I'm going to go through the TREB numbers that just came out and highlight some things that I think are most important, some things you should take note of. You can find my contact info in the description. Let's get started. So let's start with this one off the bat. The total number of residential transactions were up 42% from 7,700 September 2019 to 11,000 in the month of September 2020. And obviously this points us to the direction of a very active market. The market was very vibrant in terms of residential transactions. Commercial, not so much, but my expertise is not in commercial. However, from what I know and the numbers I've seen, residential greatly outpaced commercial. I would chiefly have to attribute this to several factors, but number one, I would say that lower lending costs. Right now, we're seeing somewhat of all-time lows in terms of borrowing costs for mortgages and private loans. In some cases, 1.7 to 1.8%. Giving people more spending power. And right now, proximity to work is no longer an issue, so people are venturing out further and further to find something affordable, as a result getting involved in the market at a purchase and sale capacity, whereas before they could not. They were very much so constrained to the areas where they had to stay in terms of proximity to work and their comfort and level comfort in the length of commute they were willing to do. And no longer is that an issue because most people work from home now, so they're venturing out further and further and kind of migrating out of the central locations of the city. Now let's talk about the selling price, because that's what a lot of people want to know. The average price, which is $960,000, which to me is kind of crazy. I mean, we're not that far away from seeing the average selling price of $1 million. We're only $40,000 shy. And where if you told me in 2016, 2015, even though the market was very hot back then, if you told me the average selling price will be $1 million, I would have probably thought you were crazy. And right now we're trending to that direction. It represents a 14% increase from last September, rather September of 2019, where the average was $842. Now, in terms of analysis, a bulk of this, I would say a large portion of this increase has to do with freehold properties, so semi-detached and detached properties and townhomes. That is to say, this increase in average price, this 40% increase, a bulk of it is being carried by these property types because condominiums are struggling. Even though we'll get to this point, it's not really represented by the latest numbers. But condominiums are for sure, in the cases where they are up, they're not up at the same speed or pace as any other property type, which is in sharp contrast to Toronto history or Toronto real estate history. It was 20,000 total new listings, which as you can see from the screen, represents a 30% increase. If we look at listings as a product, as the supply side of things, right? If in basic microeconomics, when the price goes up, the price of what you can sell a particular good for, so does supply. Pretty much the crux of the law of supply. When price goes up, so does the S curve, the supply curve. Price goes up, so does the quantity supplied. So if we look at listings as quantity supply, as I said earlier, product in a basic microeconomic context, it makes perfect sense as to why we're seeing further increase in the number of listings by a factor of 30%, because as the price of properties, as the price of the commodity goes up, it naturally makes sense that the inventory will go up. People on the supply side, sellers, are more inclined to sell. It's just basic microeconomics at this point. This coupled with this other number, days on the market, down 35%. September in 2019, the average days of the market, meaning the average days your property stand on the market, for sale was 34 days, whereas now, as we can see, it's 22 days. Take into account, this also has to do with the fact that it's such a seller-friendly market where buyers are competing with one another to an extent where they put in an offer firm, and when they put in an offer firm, there's no condition or financing period, meaning as soon as it's sold, it it's no longer on the market. Whereas in the past, where you're buying a property, it's sold, but it's sold conditionally. It still goes to count towards the days on market. Now let's move on to the condo portion, where we're gonna look at a number of other figures and break them down. Now, as you guys know or familiar, I've been telling people condos are dropping. For instance, I say this both on the field and in theory. On the field, I have a condo for sale downtown for a client of mine. The market is speaking back to us. We're definitely not seeing the same traction we would have been seeing on that same unit last year. And for all the different videos I made, all the different reasons as to why the condo market is struggling, I'm going based on the numbers, based on the legislation, based on the short-term rental Airbnb registration, which causing people to sell their condos or causing people to rent them long-term. So now landlords can no longer buy condos and Airbnb them out because that's to be their primary residence. All the different things. The fact that people no longer want to live in condos, borrowing costs are lower, they're venturing out further and further. That's another thing. I made like 15 different videos on this. And according to this report, condos are holding up. But I'm telling you, watch the October numbers, watch the November numbers. As I've been telling my investors who want to buy condos, my end users who want to buy condos, I've been telling them, wait, the prices will continue to drop. And right now, as of September, these September numbers, we haven't seen the full force of the condo market decline. It's holding up a bit, but I'm telling you, October will be worse. Average price of a condominium across the city, across the GTA, was $637,000, which was up 10% from last year. But if you look at the total number of sales year to date, condos are down 13%. I'm predicting once you wait for October and November, it's going to dip more and more. Even though the prices are holding a bit, they're not increasing in the same proportions they were increasing in the past, even though they're increasing. So it's slowly showing some stagnation, and it's down 13% year to date. I mean, every other property type is up year to date. Townhomes are up 4%. Semi-detached are up 2%. Detached are up 8%. Let's look at this chart where I think it really does signify the latest trend I've been going on about, which is people moving out of the central location of the city into the suburbs. And once again, I know this firsthand as well because I'm looking with several buyers in Far East locations such as Whitby. For instance, look at this chart. It has sales by property type and location. So 416 is the Toronto, like central GTA basically, the city of Toronto officially, whereas 905 is York Region, the GTA, Mississauga, Whitby, Durham, Stouffville, all the surrounding suburbs and cities around the city of Toronto. Now look at the number of transactions of detached properties, right, in the 905. Outside of the central locations of the city. Although York Region has certain central locations in Vaughan, but firsthand I can say, for instance, Durham and further east and west, 4,980. That many sales of detached properties outside of the city of Toronto, which goes to support partially my claim that people are moving to the suburbs, they're migrating out. Similarly, in lockstep with that number, in conjunction, in spite of that number, look at this other figure. In the city of Toronto, central, classic old Toronto, 1,500 condominium sales. So on one hand, you see people, a lot of transactions, a lot of sales of condos because they're selling their condos. And then you see a lot of transactions of detached outside of the city. So on one hand, you're seeing a bunch of transactions, which I attribute to mainly people selling their condos in the city. And then even more, 4,000 transactions of detached properties outside of the city, which I attribute to people selling the condos in the city and going to buy in suburb areas. Now, if we look at the prices, once again, all property types are outpacing condominiums, where this was not necessarily the case in previous years. Townhomes and semi-detached, 10% price increase, whereas detached price increase was 6.6%, but every other property type was 10 and above. Semi was 10, townhomes was 10. In terms of detached was 12%. I suspect the next month's report, this figure will be even higher. Anyways, there's so many more numbers, so many more stats that I can talk about all day. If you have any questions about any of them, please feel free to get in touch. My contact information in the description box. I'll be making more videos. As always, this is Sam from Saberi Real Estate. Subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Feel free to go watch all the videos I make on stats, on market trends, things you should know, all that stuff.